mobility. Ready?
Ready. Now we're ready. Right on time. Good afternoon. At this time, it is May 4 at 2:05 p.m. We are starting on the House Standing Committee on Gaming. Today, I'd like to begin with the note that we are complete. We have all members present today, constitutes quorum. Before I begin, I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone here today for this meeting. I'd like to introduce our gaming committee members. To my right is the Vice Chairwoman, Tina Sablon. To my right is Ivan Blanco, Congressman Ivan Blanco, and we have Congressman San Nicolas, and Congressman Camacho, Congresswoman Babalta. I'd also like to recognize in the audience, we have with us today Senator Edith de Guerrero. Thank you for your presence. We appreciate it. Thank you for all of those who are here today. Also like to recognize the Acting Executive Director, Mr. Vince Babalta, and his Commonwealth Casino Commission team. Thank you all for coming today to provide some updates for us. Thank you all for coming today. We also have in the House some former employees with IPI. We appreciate you coming up today as well. So with that said, I would like to move to adopt today's agenda. Seconded. So moved. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carried. Okay, as we begin, we'd like to open up for public comments. You are welcome to come and speak. Sarge, you could escort whoever would like to come up and speak into the chair that's in front. We ask that you keep it within 5 minutes. Your comments are truly appreciated and will be recorded. When you begin, if you could simply state your name for the record. And if you have any documents or any letter that you have prepared, if you could please share it with Sergeant at Arms so we could add it to our gaming committee notes. Thank you. And with that said, let's please start with public comments. Anyone is welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon to all the representatives of the House. My name is Lim, and I'm a former employee of IPI. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity to speak. And today I'm here is to bring up the matters that we are former employees who have actually resigned, and then we are currently waiting for our pay, last paycheck. And then until now, it has been already a year the company has not had any plan to pay us. We have been furloughed since last year, March. Imagine that, without pay, we have been surviving here in this island, stranded in this island, and then with no flights back. Yes, certain people may say that how come we do not have our own plans on getting our own flight back? But what happened is that without our pay, we have to face our family back. And that's the reason why that we are still staying here. And then you can hear from the news that the company has been saying that we refuse to go back. It's because that we want to wait for our last paycheck. And then now currently we are already overstayed here for more than 180 days. Okay. Our visa actually expires on September, around October last year. And then March actually is our 180 days, and we have already overstayed more than 180 days here. We have tried to go to the company to inform them that about our situation, that what the company is going to do about it, that we have already overstayed. But numerous times after when I resigned last year, almost every month I've been over to HR to inform them to see whether there is a way for them to communicate with USCIS on my overstay, but they didn't give me any answer yet. And then they've been claiming that we refuse to go back. But during that period when we tender our resignation, which is somewhere last year, August, the company should immediately get a flight tickets for us to go back, but they refuse to do so because the company has a budget. It seems from the HR, they said that any tickets above $1,000, they wouldn't purchase it. And then it drags until today. And now they are claiming that we refuse to go back. During that period, when the company has a fund, the problem is that they keep telling us that they do not have the funds to pay us and to buy us a flight ticket. And when they do have the funds, what happened is that they channeled it over to the wrong person. They didn't prioritize of giving those who have actually resigned from the company. Like even for this year itself, I think the company said that they have already cleared all the back wages from certain staff. Yes, they do have funds, but the question is that why they didn't give any priority to give those who have actually resigned first, which is last year. For me, my case is actually last year. All they can say that is that the company has no funds, and we are striving here to survive by using our own savings from the previous year that we actually worked. And I think certain staff have already finished utilizing it. You can see from the papers also, some people even get help from the public. And I feel that there are mixed reaction from the public saying that it's shameful to get help from the public like that. But I think it's not. This is the actual situation that we are facing now. So I think it's okay to get help from the public if the company still continue doing that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lim. Thank you. Under public comments, the floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is Edith De Leon Guerrero. I am currently an elected official for the Senate seat here on Saipan. I'm attending your committee meeting this afternoon because I have to express that it brings me back memories of how I was as the Secretary of Labor during all the time of the worker protests. I'm extremely alarmed about the lack of participation of the CNMI Department of Labor with respect to the workers' needs, whether it's repatriation, recovery of unpaid wages. Additionally, in the local labor regulations, they do have a provision that they do not have to wait for a worker to come in and file a complaint. As a matter of fact, the department itself can open an administrative case against any employer. This is what is alarming. The lack of participation from the local Department of Labor to enforce employment laws. We cannot continue to hide behind the issue of COVID-19 situation and pretend like all of these things are not happening before our eyes. I recall the days when I had to go fight for the employees of the Tinian dynasty. I recall the days when I had to go out on the streets and fight for the employee rights to be paid, to be housed, and to be fed. It is not acceptable to continue in this kind of a situation, to absolutely ignore what is the responsibility of the CNMI Department of Labor to address the issues and concerns of the workers. Nobody is above the law. No company is above the law. Employees' rights must be protected. As a state commonwealth, shame on us. Shame on us for allowing to continue this in the Commonwealth. Shame on department heads who refuse to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth. This is a humanitarian crisis, and we shall not let it continue to go on. These people, these workers, they have to go home to be with their families. Who are we really? What kind of flag are we flying in this state Commonwealth? Are we not flying the US flag? Are we not flying the CNMI flag? Are we proud as a people that we shall not build an economy by enslaving others? Is that who we are as a people? This is the reason why we need to hold department heads accountable. Besides the PUA problems, the FPUC problems, the LWA problems, systemic problems, people problems, management problems, refusing to accept responsibility and act upon their required authority. When they come in here to be appointed by any governor, they put their hands on the Bible, didn't they? Didn't they promise to uphold the laws of the United States and the laws of the Commonwealth? It's exactly so. This is our responsibility as elected officials, to start calling in department heads and holding them accountable. People's rights have to be protected. They're not animals, okay? They're living beings. They come in here to work, they shall be protected. They have to be paid. Liquidated damages, it's double what is owed. Why? Why is the CNMI Department of Labor very quiet about this? Not a single day since I left in May 2017, I recall the time period. Not a single time. Have you seen the Department of Labor out on the streets during all their ongoing protests after May 2017? Have you seen anybody from the Department of Labor in terms of enforcement coming up and talking about the rights of the people? Have you? Have you read on the newspapers of any labor cases that are open administratively? Does it have to take somebody to come to their door, to knock on their door, to file a labor complaint? Shameful, unconscionable, unforgivable. I urge you, this committee, to take it on. Call it in, ask the hard questions, and do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator, for your comments. Thank you. The floor is still open for any other comments from the public. You're welcome to speak. Okay, I believe that is it for public comments. We thank you for your time. Moving on, colleagues, if there are no objections, since we have Commonwealth Casino Commission, would it be acceptable to you if we could move to new business for the updates from the Commonwealth Casino Commission?
No objection. No objection.
With no objections, we'd like to invite the acting executive director and sir, any of your team that you would like to join us for today's updates and questions and answers. We like to move to this committee, to committee of the whole for question and answers. Is that okay? Good afternoon, Acting Director. Thank you again for your time and for your team. Before we begin, I'd like to ask if you would like to say some words and also introduce your team with you today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here today. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair of the Gaming Committee and honorable members of this body. My name is Vicente Babauta, and I'm the acting executive director for the Commonwealth Casino Commission. Also present with me are the managers and staff for the commission. I'll start from my right. This is Ben Hokuk, who is the acting manager for the DPAL, permit and licensing. To my right is the supervisor for the investigation at the commission. And to my left, my immediate left, is Pat Sablan, who is the acting manager for the enforcement and investigation, and June Palacios, who is the audit manager, Lenny Leonard, who is also the compliance manager, and then our analyst investigator, Justin Poon. First, I would like to say thank you for the invitation, and we look forward to update the committees on the 5 enforcement action that subsequently led to the suspension of the casino gaming portion license of the license. To update the committee, there are 5 enforcement actions. Enforcement action number 1 is the community benefit fund. Enforcement action 2 will be the casino license fee. And enforcement number 3, that will be the commission order 20-003. And then the enforcement action number 4 will be the commission order, which is the commission order 20-004. And enforcement action number 5 will be the regulatory fee. All 5 enforcement actions are major violations. All 5 enforcement actions seek monetary and suspension of the gaming activity portion of the license. The evidentiary hearing was held on February 25, 2021 and March 2nd, 2021. On April 22nd, 2021, all 5 members of the commission unanimously find with clear and convincing evidence that IPI is in violation of all 5 enforcement actions. The commission then issued order number 2021-002, whereas the commission imposed fines in the total amount of 6.6 million for all enforcement action and suspension of the gaming activity portion of the license until such time the licensee cure all the fines and to include the immediate payment of the annual casino license fee and the regulatory fee. The commission did make copies of the orders The commission also prepared a chart or matrix to clarify for clarity and reference, and I believe that that one has been passed out to the members. I just want to acknowledge all the hardworking staff of the commission. They all put in a great deal, due diligent work into the case, and the management team and our executive director, Andrew Young, for taking the lead and manage the case accordingly and procedurally. It was a long process, but it is necessary. With that said, I would like to open now the floor for any questions.
Thank you, Acting Director, for the updates. And with this time, I'd like to open it up for questions from our members. Recognize Vice Chairwoman Tina Saban.
Thank you, Acting Executive Director Babata, for that briefing, and welcome to you and your team. I guess my first question at this point is, what are the next steps from here? And has there been any kind of response from IPI to this order? Could you elaborate a little more on that and shed some light on what's coming up in the months ahead?
Well, if you look at the matrix that we provided, that's basically the matrix on the action taken by the commission. And if you look at on the final orders fines, we have fines there. They range from 100,000 to 1.5 million. I'm sorry, to 2 million. And all of these new fines has to be cured or paid within 60 days from the effective date of the order. And also on the subsequent column, which is the immediate payment, we're also asking that the licensee pays or make immediate payment on the 15 million regulatory fee, annual license fee, and the 3 million on the regulatory fee.
Okay, so I guess that was part of the question that I was getting to is what does immediate payment mean? And if you don't get that immediate payment by whatever that deadline means, then what?
Yes, the immediate payment is referring to the annual casino license fee and the regulatory fees. As of April 22nd, 2021, that will be the last new hearing. This new fees has to be paid immediately from that time. The commission did not set the time for the payment of this one within the 6 months, but rather immediate payment. So when the decision came out on April 22nd and all things, this payment on the regulatory fee and the license fee has to be immediately paid. Any question?
Just to follow up on that. So this hearing, this order was approved on April 22nd.
Yes.
After that hearing, great. And it is now May 4th. So has any payment been made on either of those fees?
No payment has been made here.
Has there been any consequence yet?
We are looking into that now.
Okay.
I want to go into the detail of this one, but there are definitely we have several ongoing investigation as well, and I don't want to go into the detail of that.
Okay. Well, have you received any response yet from IPI then as to whether and when they will be able to make this immediate?
I have not received any response from IPI.
Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairwoman. Members, other questions? Recognizing Congresswoman Selena Babata.
With respect to the claim 1, the failure to contribute, breach of contract, it says here on your matrix that fines are due on May 10th. That is 6 days away from today. Has there been any communication from IPI, whoever is here from IPI on Saipan, whether they are requesting for an extension or hinting that they would ask for an extension? I mean, that's 6 days away from today, and you guys have not heard anything. Has anybody reached out to IPI? Have they reached out? Where are we going to go with this 6 days from today?
Well, since I took over the actingship, I have not received from IPI any information in regards to any payment on the matrix. We are tracking this matrix. We have our compliance, we have our audit that are tracking this matrix and our investigation division. Like I said, we have several ongoing investigation as well, and I don't want to comment on those investigations.
Yeah, thank you. Also, it says you mentioned that the license fee, annual license fee and the regulatory fee were due immediately from April 22nd when the decision was made. However, on your matrix, it says fines are due by November 10th. Is that the same thing, or is there a fine on top of non-payment or non-compliance by paying it immediately? Do you guys accumulate interest charges per day? Is that what that means, November 10th, 2021?
Well, the fines order, the final fines column there, those are the fines and the penalty that was imposed on the licensee. The immediate payment is referring to the regulatory fees and the annual license fee. The fine due date, those are referring to the fines on each valuation.
Oh, you for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Balta. Moving on, members, any other questions from our members? Recognizing Rep. Zama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The complaint filed date here got me confused. Is that the exact date when you say, okay, it's time for us to go ahead and proceed this complaint? How many complaints before this has happened? Before you guys actually decide to say, let's get this on file?
Which enforcement action are you referring to?
Failure to contribute, failure to pay, those are the things. I've heard so many times that the employees are not paid. This is way back in 2019. So when are you only talking about your time period here? Is this the chart that you have right now?
Yes, this is the chart.
Okay, so it's not, you're not talking about the previous one. And so there should be some previous complaints before you decide to.
Well, there's some previous complaints, and those complaints have been handled, have been taken care of already. There's an enforcement action done, and they cure those new issues. But again, the enforcement action from 1 to 5, this is a cumulative combined complaints. Let's, for example, take the enforcement action number 1, which is the community benefit. This is like I think this is from 2018, 19, and 20. This is a combined consolidated complaint on the community benefit funds.
That's clarified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Zama. Members, questions? Yes, Rep. Camacho.
Thank you. Wow, we're here again, asking the same question. Last time you guys were here, I think IPI was here as well, right? And I asked, so how much is IPI worth at the moment? And is it worth saving? Because we cannot squeeze blood out of a turnip, right? So it's gonna be a long waiting game until somebody has money. Who has the money anyway? I'm sure it's out there somewhere. So what are we gonna do? Keep doing this? This is not interesting anymore. If you ask me, I just revoke the license and be done with it. That's it. And do something with that building. Let us all find new jobs. So we're not fighting hard enough. You guys should be fighting really hard. I've asked for a tour to your casino. I have not been invited. Right? IPI owe us more money than they should be giving us. I mean, they should give us a lot of money by now. But it seems like we're the one who's going to give them the money. They want us to save them. Can't save that. Can't do that anymore. I've been a very big supporter of the casino for a very long time. I campaigned for the casino to save the casino. Let's save the casino. It's already here. But I don't think at this point it's, worth saving. Nobody knows how much money the casino has. So what are we going to do? Save a broke industry? And nobody has the answer. Where's all the money? Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho. Any other members? At this time, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, if I may. Acting Director, I'm just a little perplexed that the situation right now, because the orders that were served to IPI, we have a CEO, Ray Yomo, who is not recognized or licensed, correct, by the Commonwealth Casino Commission. And I know, so who exactly does the CCC serve these papers or work with at IPI? Since the CEO is not licensed nor recognized as the CEO by CCC? That's my first question.
That will be the top management team that we have presently. That will be Jing Tao, Ridi de la Cruz, who is the director for the HR, and we continue to serve the Madam Chair and also the resident agent, Mr. Jing Tao. Which is, I'm sorry, which was later changed to Remy Muffness. So Remy Muffness now will be our contact person registered.
Okay. Thank you. So that is who you're working with. And I think the members all have sort of the same sentiments and question about this, that obviously, and we thank you for your timetable and the updates, that IPI owes the CNMI a tremendous amount of money. And Rep. Camacho said you can't squeeze water out of a turnip. Is that the idiom? Blood out of a turnip. That's a good one. I'm going to remember that. So we know that IPI isn't paying out just about anything. As you have heard from earlier emotional testimonials from some of the stranded guest workers, and as well as Senator Edith Guerrero, who is the former CNMI Department of Labor Secretary, the need to send these stranded guest workers back home is certainly should be one of the priorities. I'd like to ask, what can be done to help resolve this humanitarian crisis? Is the CCC capable of doing anything at this point to help ensure that these stranded guest workers are paid their wages that they're owed? Is this something that the Commonwealth Casino Commission could work with the Department of Labor? As Senator Edith had alluded to earlier, there's nothing that stops the Department of Labor from opening up these administrative cases with these workers, and certainly they have been here not once but a few times, and several of us in this committee have met with them. Again, this is a humanitarian crisis. We're talking about these workers that are willing to go home if they are paid, but so far they seem to be invisible or neglected by this administration, as well as the CNMI Department of Labor. I'd like to ask, and I apologize, I know you're just acting today, and I'm sorry to weigh this all on your shoulders, but if you could, or perhaps any of your team members could provide some insight or some guidance or ideas as to how we can alleviate the suffering from these workers, that they may return home with simply what they are owed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. No questions, honestly. Like you said earlier, Senator Edith has alluded to that. This is a labor matter. We don't enforce labor matter. But I can bring your attention to the enforcement action number 4. The enforcement action, enforcement action number 3, which is the we issued an order, the Commission issued an order ordering the licensee to have sufficient funds in their account based on Saipan to address not necessarily the labor matter, but the compensation of these employees. And the intention of that enforcement action 003 is to address those compensation, meaning by having this sufficient funds, advance fund, we might, cure the delay of the payroll, issuance of the payroll. So that's one thing that we're doing in our, CCC is doing on their part, or in our part, to assist on this labor matter, although it is not in our jurisdiction to enforce it. But we are doing our part in our, and the enforcement action number 3 basically address that concern.
Thank you. And it's sad, obviously heartbreaking, emotionally gut-wrenching, and using the word that Senator Edith used, unforgivable, that they have been neglected. This is a humanitarian crisis, and it's eerily reminiscent of the garment factory days, when you remember that blight that really gave our island such a bad reputation with all the labor abuse and everything, and how many of those garment factories just up and disappeared in the middle of the night, fled, leaving all their stranded workers. And remember the struggles that we had to go through. And that was a humanitarian crisis as well. I just am frustrated that we seem not to learn from our past mistakes. This was a casino that was destined to be the solution to all of our problems and all the great promises. And I apologize, but I'm going to allude back to something that is also deeply disturbing. When there was a commission granted the DPAC, right, with under James Chua, that was part of the casino license agreement. That was supposed to ensure that correction or mistakes that were made would be corrected. They would address issues and concerns and do something about it. The sad part of this, and again, I apologize for, I'm sure this has nothing to do with you directly, was that this was a confidential document that went to the office of the governor, that none of us members were able to get a copy of because it was completely confidential. I'd like to ask you, this is a side question, Acting Director, did you and your team get copies of the DPAC report from James Chua? And did you ever read through it?
I haven't seen the copy of those new DPAC new report, Mr. Chairman. I cannot tell you that the CCC never received those reports, so I cannot comment on that.
Okay, thank you. I just, it's very heart wrenching and sad.
But I see I see the concern and the frustration. The casino license agreement, the significant portion of the license agreement is non-gaming, and the non-gaming we have no enforcement authority on those non-gaming portion of the license agreement, but that falls under the governor's office, honestly, meaning all building codes and DPW. Fire codes will be fire, and zoning will be the parking as well. And but as far as the gaming, the section of the gaming, that's where the Commonwealth Casino Commission will come in. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to ask the concerns that China is blacklisting different countries. Has the CCC been discussing this concern that the CNMI may be listed or blacklisted rather? And what impact will that have on the future of the casino industry? Actually, this one, which is Chinese owned and operated. Thank you.
As far as the blacklist that everybody's talking about, we've been tracking those new laws that were changed in the mainland China. Back in October of 2020, we know that the Tourism and Cultural Ministry of China, they were mentioning about putting cracking down on their national on gambling related activities. So we tracked that and we continue to track that. As a matter of fact, in 2021, in March, the Chinese government actually was that encouraging all the Chinese citizens to come forward. If you know anybody who is involved in gaming activity or associated with anybody who is involved in gaming activity, and they even issued like an incentive for people to come forward as far as to pardon them, and they have up to April of 2021, April 30th, 2021, to come forward, and they will be given a pardon. So we are very much monitoring this. We are watching this carefully, honestly, and the blacklist will put Sinai government on those travel bans, and we are very concerned about that, not just on the gaming industry, but as well as our tourism industry. So we are very much monitoring those changes in general in China.
Thank you. And I would like to stress on that because as we have heard and probably find out, if you look at some of the reports that we've received, that the overwhelming majority of the money that came in from IPI was from what is called whales, right? So these big spenders that were coming in, it wasn't from tourists that were coming in and funding that those are peanuts. It was really these whales, and if they're not coming in, then I don't see how this casino can really survive or thrive. And as always has been my concern, the fact that we didn't have a completion bond on that building, which so many of us fought for or believed in, and it never went through. that may be, just a scar that we can never ignore. I don't know what we would do with that. There has been talk about moving it into, or opening it up and another casino license. But I believe my colleagues and I really need to see the DFAC report. I think we need to see the building, if it really is up to code with regard to something that I'm not an engineer, but I've heard many engineers who've talked to me about their concern with the pylons and the structure. And one engineer has told me that building is crooked. I said, are you talking about the owners or the building? That was a joke. So nonetheless, it does need work. We need to find solutions. And the regulatory fee that basically funds the Commonwealth Casino Commission, it's imperative that you guys collect that, because without that, then how can the Commonwealth Casino Commission really exist? So I understand when my colleagues are saying that we really have to push harder, and I know you're doing your best, and I hope we can work together with you in seeing this happen, and including helping these stranded guest workers. I yield at this point with my questions, but I recognize Rep. Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. One question. Does the governor even know that the casino is taking its last breath? I mean, come on, he's the only one that can fix this, right? We need to bring him in. This is really a serious matter. It's really frustrating, and to be honest with you, just kill it, be done with. You guys are working extremely hard for almost nothing, because it's not going to come back to life. I've been talking about this for 4 elections. Take care of the casino. Take care of the casino. Let's tax them. Give them what's coming for them, we take what's for us. Nobody listened. I've been quite faithful, as a matter of fact, hoping. No. Nothing. So here we are. I never campaigned against it. I campaigned against how it was brought in, against the wishes of the people. But I still said, let's save it. Let's save it. Even you guys are asking for money, right? The sitting commission. Nothing. Chair, we should just kill it, bring them in and just be done with it. That's what I would do. There's no money. This is on paper, it's never gonna happen. I think we should just send these poor people back home and then we'll deal with it from there on. I support revoking their license. Just get it out of the way. Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho. Before I'd like to recognize IPI's CEO, now Mr. Ray Yumo. Thank you for attending today's committee meeting. Thank you, sir. Any other questions before we move on?
I just have one comment.
Yes. Rep. Babalta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard the acting director say that IPI's labor issues is not a CCC issue, and I beg to differ. It should be a CCC issue. Now, you mentioned that the other non-gaming portion of the license is handled by the governor's office. And it sounds like you guys collaborate with Public Works for safety issues, building safety issues, with DEQ or other regulatory agencies. But it doesn't sound like you guys have ever collaborated with Department of Labor. What you just told this committee is that as long as those dollar signs keep flashing before CCC, it's okay to turn a blind eye to the labor issues. That IPI has repeatedly violated federal and local laws. When is this gonna end? And I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate because I'm just so sick of this. We exercise our privilege to ask questions, but all we get is we can't tell you that. That's a waste of our time. If you would like, we can go into executive commission at any time, so we can hear clearly. Because all we're getting is, we have these fines set up, there's a deadline. This issue has been going on for more than 3 years. When is it gonna end? Till November? What happens when November comes and these fines are not paid? What then? What good is it to investigate if you guys can't even enforce your own orders? Because there's nobody at IPI to enforce it against. Like I said, we exercise our privilege and we are asking these questions, what next? And all we get is, we cannot tell you because it's under investigation. And I respect that. I respect that investigations, many portions of it are not for public consumption, but we have the privilege of this committee to go into executive session should the chairman call for it, so we can hear. Because the questions that we have not been answered satisfactorily. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Acting Director, would you like to respond?
Yes, in every meeting, any public meeting that the CCG has, we shoot out the agenda and we invite all the agencies that we believe to be like the permit agencies and the licensing agency, even this body, even the legislatures, and to come and join the meeting and give us your feedback and help us how we can all work together in addressing certain issues that falls in under different jurisdictions or different agencies within our government. So yes, I understand the frustration, but we do sometimes have guests, visitors from the labor and fire and the public works that comes down and join the meetings. And Mr. Chairman, you were there several times, and Vice Chair, you were there also several times. And the reason why we're inviting everybody so that at the time when we need assistance, when we need solution, that we can all get together and provide those solutions to whatever the problem at the time that we're facing. But yes, I understand the frustration also. But again, we have to respect other agencies, their jurisdictions, and their respective agencies that who is responsible for certain things or for certain areas in the casino license agreement. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm still open for questions from our members. Recognizing Vice Chairman Tina Salon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a series of questions, and I think we can maybe run through some of them fairly quickly. If we could just start with, where is the executive director, and when is he expected to return?
Our executive director, Mr. Andrew Yu, is on personal leave, and he will be back to office on May 11th.
And just following up on Representative Camacho's question. So as you know, Mr. Babata, the CCC shares concurrent authority over the license with the governor. Has there been any communication from the governor, any sort of direction as to where the Commonwealth as a government is going with respect to the casino licensing?
Again, I'm just recently got appointed for this acting chief, and I have no communication with the governor whatsoever. But again, I cannot say that the executive director under you. So I'll let him answer to that question. Sorry.
Thank you. And going back to the CCC order, so as you pointed out, as the order makes clear, these 5 complaints all point to major violations committed by the casino over what seems like years. And the CCC order mentioned more than 16,000 violations that have been identified by the casino. I guess I would like to understand how did we allow the violations to accumulate to such an extent for so long before finally taking this action to suspend this license? Is there a well-documented record, Mr. Babata, of notices of violation, of citations, when your managers recommended that there should be notices of violation, when your managers recommended that there should be enforcement action, how quickly did the top executives of the CCC and the commissioners themselves, how quickly did they respond, and how much support did your enforcement managers actually get?
This is the violations. I'm sorry, I didn't get the counts or the violation. They said 16,000.
Over 16,000.
Over 16,000. Again, that's the breakdown of our attorneys, because this is all attorneys who know breakdown in this case and all things. But if you look at, for example, the enforcement number 5, it didn't come. This enforcement action addresses all the vendors, both private and public vendors, that the licensee has obligations, and they were overdue financial obligations. So that order or that enforcement action addresses those those vendors that are up for payment. And if you look at the vendors that were affected by that, there's about 300 vendors. So if you look at that calculation, and then for how many days that they have failed or to cure those obligations, it's all add up. And
right.
I believe the number that you just said, I believe those are counted by days. For if you didn't pay the vendors for 6 days, then that would be like 6 violations. Because every day is a violation.
Yes, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I understand that part, but I think that really the question is how do we allow things to get so bad for so long before finally taking this action, right? Because we still, yes, there's an order as to vendors. Yes, there's an order as to payroll. There's an order as to the community benefit fund and all these other violations, right? But the fact remains is that there are still vendors who have been waiting years to be paid. We still have workers right here in the gallery and all throughout this island, scattered all throughout this island, who are still owed money. And so my question is really, like, if we were to look at the record of enforcement actions, enforcement attempts at least, I would like to know if your frontline staff, if your enforcement officers, if your compliance officers, did you guys get the support that you needed to hold IPI accountable every single time there was even a minor infraction? Like, and maybe that's not a fair question to ask you right now, and I understand the position that you're in, but it just seems to me that 16,000 violations, multi-million-dollar fines, and finally this license has been suspended, possibly maybe revoked as the next step, right? But there is some responsibility, I think, on the government as well for allowing this culture of really non-compliance to persist all these years. I'll go to my next question. Does anyone at the CCC have a copy of the due diligence report that was done on IPI at the very beginning, before the license was issued in the first place?
Okay. Yes, I believe I've seen that report.
Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Chairman if this committee could obtain a copy of that report. And we could get to that when we get to the next item in our business on oversight. Okay, thank you, that's good to know. So you would have to be the person with custody of that report?
I don't have the custody of it, but I believe I saw it somewhere in the office. I just don't know where is it.
And then going to one of the questions that the chairman asked earlier as to who CCC is dealing with. So you mentioned Mr. Tao, the chairwoman, Ms. Rainy Mockness, and Ms. Dela Cruz. Are you dealing with anybody in Hong Kong? Anyone in the parent company, IPI Holdings?
Just the chairwoman, who is I think right now is on second.
And is still on second. Okay.
So.
But only the chair at this point.
Only the chair.
Okay. Do you know if there are any other directors or board members who are actively engaged in overseeing operations with IPI Holdings over IPI Saipan?
Not that I know.
Okay. And my last two questions really have to do with if you could bring us up to speed on the junket licenses that were terminated. Is that correct? Brief us on that, and just for the members' benefit. And then I have one more question after that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I don't have the commission order that. Let me just put it. Yes, I think you're referring to the Commission Order 2021-003, where we addressed the junket. Yes, there was in our April 22nd meeting, we did move and some motion to address the issue on the junket.
And what was the action? And why?
They temporarily issued an order instructing me to suspend all issuance and renewal of junket license.
So this is just a temporary suspension. So, but for what purpose?
It was a temporary. They issued an order for me to suspend all issuance and renewal of junket license, and while there's another order so that they can move to revisit the regulation for possible amendment on that part 26 of the regulation in regards to the junket.
So the CCC is revisiting regulations as to the junket operators. And may I ask who from the CCC is responsible for doing the vetting and the due diligence reviews of junket operator applicants?
We have our senior investigator, si Pat Sablan.
Okay, and finally, I wanted to ask about the current fiscal condition of the Casino Commission. I understand that you asked for $3 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, and I understand that the administration has signaled that they are unlikely to provide that. But the administration does still owe the CCC $2 million. Is that correct? That was borrowed from the CCC for the COVID response.
That's based on what my understanding. Yes, they still know.
And there has been no part of that returned to the the CCC since last year?
I have not received that no information yet. I don't have any information whether they actually know return that money yet.
And
And it's
are,
not as of last week.
and are the employees still under austerity?
Which the CCC staff is still operating on the 64 hours, no austerity.
And when are you supposed to run out of money, sir?
I don't have the information yet on that one, but we are actually looking now on the possibility of putting staff on furlough.
And the governor is aware of this.
I'm not sure about that.
And finally, does austerity apply to everyone, including your commissioners?
No knowledge on the commissioners.
No knowledge, or it does not?
I cannot answer that, no, ma'am. I need to verify that. I never really checked on the commissioners. All I know is that the staffs are under 64 hours.
Okay. Can anyone on your team verify with you whether or not it applies to the commissioners?
Madam Vice, I will verify that and report that back to you. But for now, I don't know if the team knows.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'd like to recognize Rep. Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. One question. Does any one of you know what happened to the community chest fund? A little bird told me where it's at. And I'm doing my own investigation as well. We're all gonna do investigations. You guys help me out. So where is it? Does anybody know? Aren't you guys supposed to know what goes on with that money? It's an ongoing question. We'll never answer it. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho, and you can share that little birdie with me. I'd like to know that as well. Thank you. I have a couple of questions I'd like to add. First, for our viewing audience and also for our members, we'd like to know with the invitations as to if you could just explain why the commissioners didn't attend today's meeting with us, and also the legal counsel for CCC is not in attendance. Normally, we would see Mr. Ernest. I'm just surprised they're not here today. Is there a reason for that? Thank you.
Well, for the commissioners, under the advisement of the legal counsel, they are not to be present today because of the fact that the topic and the discussion that we are discussing today might come back to before them, and they want to stay and remain fair and impartial in the decision of whatever that comes before them.
Thank you. So we'll have to subpoena them. No, I'm just kidding. It was a joke. But seriously though, no. I do have one more question. So, and this is something that Vice Chair Sablan had brought up. So with regard to your current financial situation for the committee, for the commission, the administration or the central government borrowed $2 million took $2 million from the CCC, and I'm sure that has impacted your operations. I'd like to, if you don't have this answer, if you could get it back to me as soon as possible. I think we would like to know, how are you able to pay the CCC staff right now? And also, if that money, that $2 million is not given back, how long will you be able to exist in operation? How long can CCC operation without that $2 million being replaced, or without the regulatory fee, the $3.1 million being paid? How much time does the commission have?
think, Mr. Chairman, I would like to request if we can probably discuss that in that close meeting. I don't have all the information right now to accurately, answer your questions.
Okay, thank you. I would appreciate that. And also, the question I was asked earlier with regard to the pay cuts for the staff, as you know, I think all of us are fans of the front line. And if anybody is going to take a big pay cut, it should be from the top up. So I would love to hear from the commissioners if they would be willing to take a big pay cut to ensure that the front line is able to continue to, support their families. I think the commissioners make, is it 65,000, 70,000 higher? Is it about that? Okay, that's more than double our salary. And how often do they go out and do the things that we normally do? So I'm just saying they're paid handsomely, and I think they could easily afford a big pay cut to ensure that you guys continue to getting paid. That's just a comment and an observation. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Leader.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And good afternoon, members of CCC. I think you're clear about that. I'm going through the commission orders, all three of them, and I thank you for breaking down the orders in the matrix. But I do fail to see who is supposed to collect the outstanding $25 million, more than $25 million. Who's in charge of collecting that?
Although 2138 gave us the procurement and to have our own bank account and to have our own accounting and all things. Since we are not yet there, we are not prepared yet. Okay, so I believe that before I say anything that is not more accurate and honest, I believe it will still go to the general fund for now, and then I don't know where it's going to go from there. But as far as the collection part, we're still going through the Department of Finance.
Okay. So, but from what I understand, there's really no statute that says who's supposed to collect this $25 million. Okay. So clarify. If the CCC were to be the collectors of this $25 million, how confident are you professionally, in your professional opinion, how confident are you in collecting these sums of $25 million within these periods that they're supposed to be collected?
Well, we were hoping that the licensee will comply with this order. The commission also provided the committees here the audit report from the holding company, and the audit report from the holding company did note the enforcement actions, potential fines and penalties, and they even mentioned in their report that they're actually exploring other options of getting the funding to address the matter in all this new financial obligation in the cinema. So we're hoping that they will comply with this. As far as how sure I am and all this thing, I cannot answer that.
Okay, so clarified. Thank you very much, Mr. Babata. You, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Leader Blanco. At this point, are there any other questions by our members?
Just one.
Yes. Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back, you mentioned about the unpaid vendors. Has IPI made any progress in paying the vendors and unpaid employees? Has they made any progress to pay them?
No, there's no progress that we have seen. Payroll, that's the main the priority right now is to keep up with the payrolls and all these things. But as far as vendors goes and all these things, we haven't seen any significant progress in the vendors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Nicholas. Acting Director and your team, we appreciate your time today, coming in and being so open with our questions. I hope in the future we would have the CCC Legal Counsel and others who could come in and answer some of our questions. And I appreciate all you're doing as in your acting capacity. I know it's difficult, but we thank you for doing your very best in answering our questions. And we do have a lot more to come. Before we close this with you, I just want to say that it is sad to see what has happened with regard to this once promising casino, and we cannot put all the blame on your shoulders. I think this government has to shoulder a lot of the blame as well. And it's not just the office of the governor, that includes the legislature, includes all leaders who push so quickly for an industry that seems so promising, but still had so many questions that remained unanswered. And the whole time, if you can recall, simply look to the headlines, and so many of us, including myself, including my colleagues here, that were championing transparency and accountability when it came to dealing with this casino, we were shoved and pushed aside and blasted. And I look to today, the situation where we're at. If we had just listened, been wise enough at that time to make the right decisions, I'm confident from what I've heard with regard to that DPAC report, which I cannot wait to see, that there were some warning signals way back that were ignored. Deeply disappointing to see that. And again, this is not at the blame of, it's not to blame on you or any of you. I think everybody has a share in these problems that we're facing. If you want to see this casino succeed, I honestly don't know if it's with IPI. I'm deeply concerned when they can't even pay small wages to their stranded guest workers in a humanitarian crisis in which they should be prioritized to be sent off. And the blame game is going around. It doesn't answer the issue. They're still here. They're wanting to go home. They can't be paid. Yes, the CNMI Department of Labor has the ability to do this, but in my heart, I believe that the CCC, under your leadership, under your work, can help ensure that they do this, that you can work with them. And we also must bear that responsibility, as you mentioned before, working together on this. But I appreciate your time again. I wish you a very good day and week, and thank you for your time. Maybe excused. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Short recess? Is that okay? A few minutes. Okay, we are back in session. Um, Moving down to old business, on item number 4, letter C, on oversight hearing on the governance, financial suitability, and compliance failures affecting IPI. The list of request letters and subpoenas. Vice Chairwoman and members, I think this really should read a list of demand letters and subpoenas. With regard to this oversight hearing, Vice Chairwoman and members, I would like to inform you that we would like to move forward and utilizing Title I, Section 1309 letters, the demand letters, and put them out to different agencies and individuals that we would like to meet with. That would include IPI, the Commonwealth Casino Commission, of course, DPAC, the Department of Public Works, BECQ, CNMI Department of Labor, as well as the Office of the Governor and several other members, several other witnesses. So Council, the Title I, Section 1309 letters that will be going out, is that the correct term, Title I, Section 1309?
1301.
1301 or 1309?
09.
It's 1301. Well, yeah.
Okay.
If you could just
Clarify which number?
Title I, Section 1309 is the operative section for these letters.
Okay.
We want to use the approach that I believe you're trying to take, as opposed to other measures which are available, which include subpoena powers under 1301.
Okay.
But short of 1301 subpoenas, the 1309 letters have been very successful, and if that approach works, then and the committee wants to go that approach, then I would strongly recommend it.
Thank you, Council. With that said, members, we will proceed with these demand letters that will go out, and of course, before anything goes out, you will get a copy of it and as to what we're looking for. And of course, if they do not comply, we follow up with subpoenas. Is that correct, Council?
Well, that's correct.
And for those subpoenas, we would have to meet and, of course, agree to that. Is that correct, Council?
Yes, there are some legislative formalities that we would need to address, but in general, yes.
Thank you. So noted. And we will ensure that we are following proper rules and regs with regard to that. I'm sorry, Rep. Abata, did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you run down the list of who these letters will go out to?
With regard to the witnesses, we are still. I'm still compiling a list, and I will be meeting with each of you, as well as our vice chair, so that we can compile a list. I have some ideas. I'm sure Vice Chairman does, and I'm sure you do. So I didn't want to say all the names right now. I would rather us discuss it and build from there. And then we can put them all out, who we want to question with regard to with these letters going out. So if you do have some that you have an idea who you want to include, please do. We would appreciate that. And then we will, as a committee, meet and discuss this list that we will compile together. Yes.
One other question. Do we have a target date or anticipation date of when these letters will go out? The other one is I recommend that maybe the Lottery Commission be included in your list.
That is a fantastic suggestion, recommendation. Thank you. I have included it. And that is all the more reason why we need to meet and make sure we go over everybody and every company, private or public, as well as witnesses that we want to get this information together. You know, it's interesting because sometimes I hear from some who have said, why even bother? This is a dead issue. The casino is going to collapse. And nonetheless, we have our jobs cut out. And part of this is to ensure that this doesn't happen again. We need to start learning from our mistakes and see where we went wrong, and for other reasons, obviously.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think just for the record and just for clarification, it's my understanding that, you know, we should at least identify the recipients of these 1309 demand letters. And so if I could just run through the list that you read and make sure we're all on the same page, and perhaps we could put this in the form of a motion authorizing you to issue these letters, or requesting that you issue these letters. Although I don't know that we voted on 1309 letters the last time, but I think we just established for the record who would be the recipients. Is that correct, Council? Okay. And so again, the scope of this oversight, again, for the record, is on the governance, compliance, and financial suitability failures affecting the casino licensee, IPI. And so the recipients of these 1309 demand letters for the documents that we'd be requesting, and potentially for witnesses that we'd be summoning for hearings, would include Imperial Pacific International, the Casino Commission, the DPAC, the Development Planning and Advisory Committee, the Department of Public Works, the Lottery Commission, the Office of the Governor, the Bureau of Environmental and Coastal Quality, and the Department of Labor, and also Triple B. And I guess that's that for the record. Council, should we make a motion? What's your advice?
We just need to make sure we're very clear on the record, and it doesn't necessarily need a motion so long as there's no objections.
Okay.
But for the 1301 subpoenas, we definitely would need the clear record with the motion seconded and the vote.
Right.
With respect to the 1309 letters, it's a lot less technical than the 1301 subpoenas.
Okay.
So I think the degree of formality doesn't have to be as high,
Okay.
but we do need to make sure we have a record that's clear
Okay.
who the recipients of the 1309 letters will be, just so the legal counsel and the legislative assistant have the list.
Right.
And it's not like, implicit, it needs to be express.
Right, and the template letters that we can use the previous special committee letters that were issued in the last legislature
Absolutely.
as a template, right?
Absolutely.
So we're citing the part of the code that explains our legislative authorities in conducting this investigation. We're listing the documents that we want, or the chairman would list the documents that is requested or demanded. And then if the agency does not comply, then the subpoena would be forthcoming. And at that point, we would make it clear on the record and we would have to take a vote.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for the clarification on that, Council and Vice Chair. Any other comments on letter C before we proceed?
Ready.
Ready? Okay. Moving down to D for old business, the updates on stranded IPI guest workers. I wanted to ensure we include this, most especially as some of them have, it was old business, but also the fact that we wanted them to be able to come in and speak during public comments. As you all have heard, some very emotional testimonial that continues. We hope that there can be some resolution to these poor, stranded guest workers who will be able to go home if they are paid their wages. As we've mentioned before, they're not seeking a fortune. Some of them are only owed $5,000 to $6,000. It's really pennies for what is owed to other large companies. Collectively, we're looking at probably $1 million or a little bit more than that, so that they can go home. That's certainly, if IPI can't afford this, how can we expect them to pay any of this, these fines that have been mentioned, there's an old saying, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. Thank you very much. Okay, and moving on from, any comments with letter D? If not, we move down to miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? Yes. Vice Chair?
Mr. Chairman, yeah. Sorry, this is, I don't know if this is really miscellaneous or just going back to Rep. Babasa's earlier question. So setting a timetable for when these letters would go out. I would just propose that we aim to get these letters out by next week, the week of May 10th, and set a due date for May 21st. And then we can come back to schedule hearings after that. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. The bureau staff will be on rota, so we'll do our best working to work towards that deadline and route the letters that need to be signed.
When do you return from audit?
Saturday, Sunday, and then we go to Tinian the very next Monday.
Oh, that's right.
Well, I think we will be with the bureau staff. Could we? I mean, we could sign the letters then, right?
If we can get them done there,
Okay.
we just have to make sure we have the.
But Vice Chair, are you proposing that we work when we're in Union Rota?
I think it's doable.
I'm
Thank
just
you.
kidding. Yes, we can. Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me of that, Vice Chair. And Rep. Babata, yes, we will move quickly on this. The timetable is realistic. We can easily get these letters out and signed and get everyone's approval, everyone's signature. Colleagues, is that doable? Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for bringing that up, Vice Chair. Okay, under announcements, any announcements? No announcements? Okay, moving on to last part, adjournment. Motion for adjournment? So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, you can stay. Thank you all.
Thanks. We may not have a printer over there that I've got access to, so.
Printer?
Printer.